So I've done a few solar videos in the past, and I noticed two types of comments. The first group, people who know a lot more about 12-volt systems than I do. They're quick to point out stuff that I've missed. They're usually right. And then the other type of comment I get is from people who would like to learn about 12-volt systems and solar power, but they look at what I'm doing and they're like, that's way too hard. So for this video, I wanted something that would be simple so anyone could do it, and also at the same time have every component I need. That's why I went with a power station, this Bluetti Apex 300. One thing I really like is this is a dual voltage power station. Right here you can switch 120, 240. Reason that's important for this build is I'm putting a breaker box in. And if you energized a breaker box with just 120, you would only be powering up one of the bus bars that come up and feed the breakers. So every other breaker would be energized and the rest of them will be dead. It's 3,840 watts of output. So you've got an AC circuit here, and then you've got a separate AC circuit here. 2,764 watt hour capacity. In here is the solar input. These are XT60 ports. Each one can handle 1,200 watts. So you could get 2,400 watts of solar input. That would charge really quite fast. Over here, you got battery expansion port, so you could stack a bunch of batteries underneath of it through this. So on this end, we've got a 50 amp outlet. This is what I'm going to use to power the cabin. I'm going to use a 50 amp RV cord, and I'm going to take that cord, wire it to the breaker, and plug it in here. 20 amp circuit breaker for them front outlets, 30 amp outlet, AC input port. So this is where the cord plugs in to charge the unit off the wall. They've got another 50 amp port here. Then you've got a ground screw right here where you can ground the unit. So I like to have my outlets about 18 inches off the floor. So I'll cut a board that's 18 inches, put the outlet there. Now I'm thinking small refrigerator in here. One thing I love to have in the winter is a boot dryer. It's always nice to have your boot dryer near the door where you take your shoes off. So I'm gonna put one right here. But this is the kitchen. The countertop's gonna be 36 inches high. The counter's 36. I doubt there's gonna be any kind of backsplash, but I'll go 40 inches. I'm gonna put a 30-inch ceiling fan, so it has to be at the very least probably 15 to 16 inches from the wall. I also like to use a board with a hole in it for a template for my wiring holes. This keeps the hole in the center and it also keeps it nice and level, so it's neater. This bathroom doesn't have a window, so it needs to at least have a fan. I'm just going to route the exhaust out through the porch roof area. Now we're on to pulling wire. I enjoy this part of the job. It's pretty easy physically, but mentally it can be pretty tough. You have to know a lot of the code, all of it really, if you want to get it right. And honestly, before you get to this, when you're nailing your boxes up, there's code you need to know. There are specifics to pretty much every step of every electrical job. There's absolutely no way I could sit here and ramble off every single aspect of code. Guaranteed there's something I don't know or I would miss. I actually learned how to wire from the first home I owned. It was apparently a pool hall in the late 1800s. An absolute piece of junk. I gutted the whole thing, totally renovated it. It had floor joists that were logs with bark on them. So I learned a lot on that job. And then I wired my next house and I wired my next house. Every single one of them, I had to look up code. This blue wire is a 14-3, so it's 3 14-gauge conductors with a ground wire. You need this for a 3-way switch. Now there's other ways to run them, but the only way that I know of, and I believe is the simplest way, is you run power with a 14-2 to one switch. From that switch, you run a 14-3 to the other switch that you want to control the lights with, and from that switch, you run a 14-2 to the light. Code does require that any vertical penetration has to be filled with fire-resistant caulk. The idea behind this is to slow the spread of fire. It's not going to stop a fire, but it may buy you a little bit of time. I'm not sure if they've added horizontal holes to code, so I just decided to fill them. A tube of this stuff goes a long ways, and it's really not that expensive. Put these wire grips in. Just gonna go back through, double check, make sure every one of them is good and tight. That is some quick, easy wiring. Well, I'm quickly running out of good, warm, sunny days to put my solar panels on the roof. This is the bracket that holds up the rail system. It's kind of nice. It comes pre-hacked with this mastic. This seals it up really well. I've never installed one of these myself, honestly, so I think it goes like that. Basically something like that. It's got a T-bolt that comes out of here, bolts onto this, tightens down, and then the solar panels run across it, and it's got some different brackets that hold the solar panels on. I got my first one down, but I didn't realize it wasn't even in the camera shot, so the next one I'll put down. Going right in here, 27 inches up. It's gonna be right in there. Just double check. That looks good. All right, that looks good. I'm definitely going to need to square these, because if one's too far that way or one's too far that way, my panels aren't going to line up, because these are just barely long enough. Right here I'm just under 9 feet, and over here, yeah, right on. It's really a pretty easy system to install so far. Before I tighten this one, I better get the last one in, otherwise it probably won't go. Hardest part's definitely going to be getting the solar panels up here. Basically like an 80-pound sheet of plywood. Honestly, I think that should probably seal up without silicone. It looks like it's really good seal, but I'm not even going to screw around. I'm just going to silicone everything. That should do it. I'll smooth that out after I'm done hitting all the rest of them. My friend David was able to come over and help me put these up, and I'm pretty thankful. These things are kind of unruly, and I didn't want to damage them, so thanks again. Got it? Yeah. That loyal dog right there, that's Charlie's dad. I'll get up there. All right. Oh, I'm gonna have to loosen that clamp down there too. That's not bad. Let's take it this way a little bit. I've actually had the Bluetti Apex 300 for a couple of months now. I used it to cut all of my log siding, so I've gotten a ton of use out of this thing, and so far it's done a really good job. This is a 12-inch miter saw, and it actually draws quite a lot of power, especially when you sink the entire blade into a piece of wood. This is a 6x6 timber, and it didn't slow it down hardly at all. No more than it would slow down if it were plugged into a wall. So it was really quite nice to have a power station that I knew I wasn't pushing it past its limits or right to the edge. This thing had no problem with these timbers. When I was doing the siding and posts, I'd charge it every night after I was done. It would normally have somewhere between 70 and 85% of a charge after a full day of work. After that, I started doing tongue and groove pine. That was running the air compressor and the chop saw. The air compressor pretty much ran non-stop, but at times I'd run the chop saw while the air compressor was running, and the saw didn't slow down at all. It was running just like it would if it was plugged into the wall in my shop. So I would have to say, if it can run an air compressor all day long and a chop saw throughout the day, it should be able to power this cabin no problem. First thing I like to do is strip all of the wires. Once I've got them all stripped, I go back through and do my work. I'll just really lightly score the outer jacket. Definitely don't want to cut through that jacket and cut a wire. I don't want to say too much about code because electrical code is going to be different everywhere you go, and I'm not a licensed electrician, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. But here, last I knew, a kitchen had to have 2 dedicated circuits, 20 amp GFCI protected. That's why I wrote power on this. For a normal outlet, I wouldn't bother writing power because it doesn't matter. This one, the power needs to hook up to one side of the GFCI. You have to know which side supplying that outlet. This is going to power the light switch over the sink. So I'm going to strip this now. I'll strip this one. I'll leave the one that's labeled power until I'm ready to hook the stuff up. The other thing is, if you don't hook these up right, the outlet's still going to work. You're still going to have power there, but you won't be protected and you won't know. So these are separate circuits. Because of that, these 2 grounds will get tied together, With it being a light switch, the two neutrals will get tied together and the two hots will land on the light switch. This and this will tie together as far as the grounds go. Keep those circuits separate, totally different. So we twist these grounds together like so. You do need to clip one of them off, but I like to crimp it just in case. I've had it happen where I've clipped one off, crimped it, accidentally broke a ground. I've actually found that just squeezing the edge seems to work a lot better than using a crimping tool, because it just kind of squeezes it down and encases it really well. I've had better luck doing it that way than using these stake-ons. All right, now we just clip one off. All right, now this is just a light switch. So we tie the neutrals together. All right. Stuff these neutrals back in there. Okay. So as far as the blacks, the hot, it doesn't matter if this one's up here or that one's up there. It doesn't make a difference. All you're doing is breaking the circuit between the two. So you're energizing it when the switch is up and de-energizing it when the switch is down. Doesn't make a difference which one goes where at all. All right. So here's our first GFCI, ground fault circuit interrupter. I'm sure everybody's familiar with them, but what they do is they make sure there's not any voltage leaking to ground. If they sense it, they trip it off. It protects you from electrical shock. You want these anywhere there's going to be moisture: kitchens, bathrooms, basements. They have to be the first outlet in the circuit, and then it can protect multiple outlets past it. But to do it properly, you have to make sure you pay attention to this. Where it says line, that's where the power comes into this receptacle from the breaker. So you have to power it down here, and then any outlets past this outlet get powered from the top where it says load, and that'll protect multiple outlets past this outlet. Back here's my breaker box. Instead of finishing this in tongue and groove pine, I'm going to use paneling and I'm going to use screws. That way, if I want to get in here, say down the road for some crazy reason, I want to hook up to the power grid, all I'll have to do is pull off this panel, pop a hole through the wall, run a cord out there, hook up a 50 amp RV plug, and then it can be hooked to the grid. To do that, you'd sink a pole outside, you'd have a meter and a breaker with a disconnect, and then you'd hook into this. So it'd be pretty simple to do, but if I sheet this wall in tongue and groove, I'd have to pull all the tongue and groove off, and it'd probably ruin the majority of it. When I was wiring this box, I did make a mistake, and that mistake was I turned the camera off when I thought I turned the camera on. So I didn't get a lot of that wiring process. So what I like to do is I'll separate all my wires. I'll run all the ground wires first. So the grounds from this side, they'll swoop down and go over here. The grounds from this side will come down and then go back up into this. And that gives me extra wire. Running the ground wires first puts them in the back, makes it look nice and neat. The next thing I run are all my neutrals. So the neutrals from this side will come around and land up here. Neutrals from this side will come around and land up here. The ones down here, I make a little bit of an extra swoop in the wire, land them whichever side. Then the blacks, they'll come around, land on the breaker. This side, come around, land on the breaker. The ones from down here come up, make a little swoop, land on the breaker, just so long as I've got an extra foot or so of wire. That way, if there's a mistake made, I've got enough wire. I do need to add this green bond screw. Another thing I forgot was smoke detectors. You need one inside every bedroom. Luckily, this one's only got one, and then you need one outside of every bedroom. And this wall was still open, so I was able to hardwire them in. Kind of a pain in the neck. This is why I didn't show you the process because it's really hard to get in here. I'd drill through there, put that one up there, then through this wall, down into the breaker panel. So let's wire it up. Pretty simple, black to black, red to red, white to white. If you only have one smoke detector and you're wiring it up, you don't hook the red to anything. It comes with a little cap on it. You just leave that cap on it. The red is only for connecting multiple smoke detectors together so that they'll work together. And you see this little hole, there's a pin here. That'll let you know you're putting it in the right direction. Clicks in. There we go. I used to kind of dread doing lights because a lot of times you're working above your head for so long, it's just hell on the shoulders. But man, these are just so quick and easy. They say this is good for a long time, but the one thing that I don't like is I highly doubt this unit is replaceable. So with this probably not being replaceable, you'll probably have to change out the whole light fixture. I don't love that, but as far as ease of installation, this is just so simple. All right. Well, I wanted to have a ceiling fan in this place. Being that it's so small, I wanted to keep it a smaller ceiling fan. This little sucker, that's gonna be tiny. So what's in the box? This. Looks like a ceiling fan, right? Doesn't it get old having to assemble every tiny little part and piece? The mounts for the blades, you have to assemble those. This has to go on here. This has to go on there. The hanger. The pin, they didn't even put the cotter key through there. I almost lost that. These are all the screws to mount the blades, some other screws, some washers, the pull cord, weights for the blades. What a joke. Oh well, I guess what do you do but assemble a stupid ceiling fan? I don't think anything's irritated me on this build as much as this stupid ceiling fan. Guess it's nice to keep products cheap. I'd pay an extra 20 bucks to have this thing assembled when I bought it instead of having to screw around with all this. Yep. All right. So cold. Something like that ought to work. For right now, the ground is just running down through this hole. It's temporary. At some point, I may end up adding a conduit all the way down through, protecting it all the way into the ground. But this building is going to be moved, so there's no point in doing this up like a permanent residence would be done up. I need to get this cord fed in rather quickly, otherwise it's stiff and bugs. This is just temporary too. Once I get my flooring. Oh yeah. That's how I want it to look. Pretty neat. It's got its own compartment. However, I came up to a problem. The ground prong is on this side. Completely backwards from what I need. And this cord is so stiff. I went to the store and looked, they don't sell plugs that are backwards or straight. They're all like this. So I guess what I'm gonna have to do is I'm probably gonna have to cut a new cord and I'm gonna have to come out higher and swoop it back around, which is gonna put a big loop out here. And I don't like that, but I don't really see any other option at this point. Now that we've got those solar panels cleaned off, so I'm just gonna test them. 56 volts. I'm not gonna do this completely the way it should be done. I'm doing this more for demonstration. The thing is, this cabin's not staying where it's at. So if I drive this ground rod all the way down, and then I put another one 6 feet out all the way down and attach both those ground rods, they're both gonna be stuck here and the cabin's gonna be gone. I don't want that. So I'm just gonna demonstrate. I'm gonna drive this down to a height that mainly I think I can get back out of the ground. So, pretty soft soil. Wow, I might go further than I thought. All right, I'm gonna leave it right here. These are acorn clamps. They're pretty much what everybody expects to see on a ground rod. I like to use 2 of them. That way, just in case one breaks, you've got another one on there. They can break pretty easy if you over tighten them. So what you would do, this would be under the ground. You'd have a hole dug. Oh, I gotta loosen my bolts. You'd run the wire right through this one, and then there'd be another one, I believe 6 feet out from it. And you'd have 2 ground rods, 1 continuous wire all the way to the second ground rod, both connected with acorn clamps. Tighten it down, but don't go crazy because they will break. It's good and snug. I'm just gonna send the excess back under the cabin. Again, if this was a permanent thing, this isn't the way you do it. You'd have 2 grounds, they'd go all the way into the dirt. The second one would be about 6 to 8 feet from the first one. Continuous ground. So I definitely screwed up. I shouldn't have swept the solar panels off before I hooked the wires up. So I can't just chop this, otherwise I'm causing an arc across the 2. I can't just chop through this, so I need to strip these cables all the way back and do them one at a time. And honestly, I'm not suggesting that you wire anything like this while it's energized, but I really can't. I could, but I really don't want to get up on that roof and disconnect these panels up there. So I'm going to do it this way. All right. Crimp it nice and good. Put a couple of them on there. All right. That's not going in. This end, pretty slick. You just push it on, it clicks. And you tighten this screw. All right, there's one. These ones can throw you off because both end has a hole in it, but it's the one that's got this shorter section that goes on the wire. The other section is part of the connector. I definitely would not suggest doing any of this on a day with full sun because it might not be as good an idea. Let's see, just push it on there. Clicks. Tighten it down. There we go. All right. I didn't film fixing this. What I did was I cut off that cord, the remainder, wired it up into here, ran it out, kind of measured it out to the Bluetti, and put on a new end piece. Now first I'm gonna hook the ground up. Actually, I'm gonna shut this off before I do anything. All right, she's grounded. Let's plug in some solar. All right, my solar is hooked up. It's been snowing pretty good outside, so not much, 20 watts. Those panels are both 585 watt panels. So if they were clean, if the sky wasn't completely clouded, if we weren't getting lake effect snow, I'd probably be getting some pretty good power input. But with the snow we've got, not so much. Because it's like 20 degrees outside, this wire is way too stiff to bend and plug in. So I'm gonna have to heat it up with a heat gun and form it. It's running this heat gun fine. It draws about 1500 watts. It's gonna take a little while. This cord's really cold. That should work. I'm gonna shut everything back off. Okay, maybe it won't shut off because it's charging. All right, I'm gonna unplug the solar panels and shut everything off. Plug this thing in. I don't know if it needs to be off to plug it in. It just makes me feel better. All right. Okay, we're hooked up. Might as well plug these panels back in. All right. We have power everywhere. This is fantastic. Let me show you the tour. Got a beautiful can light in the porch. Nice little exterior outlet there. Outlet for the boot dryer right over here. The refrigerator. Heck yeah, I am loving it. Light over the sink. We've even got a ceiling fan. Although it's freezing cold right now and I really don't want to do this, but it works pretty darn good. I scratched it with a pole already, but nice. I am really digging this. Down here you can see the Bluetti Apex 300 humming away, doing its thing. It's really nice to be able to have one unit, all self-contained, taking care of everything. Let's check out the bedroom. Bedroom light, still got a little paneling left to get rid of. We've got tons of work left to do. Got a closet light back here. I nearly forgot about this. This is the DC hub for the Apex 300. It's got a nice cord, just plugs in. I believe it carries up to 50 amps. You've got the two PowerPoint outlets, USB-Cs, and then the regular USB-As. And it has just this clamp style mount. So you can basically clamp it to, I don't know, anything, I guess, a 2x4, a pipe, something like that. They might even sell a mount. I don't really know, but it also has a 50 amp Anderson connector. So you can plug that in and like hardwire it into an RV. So I think overall this has been a success. I think choosing to go with this Apex 300 was the right answer, especially in this cold weather, because it saved me a ton of time. I didn't have to wire in all those different components. It saved me a lot of running because I didn't have to keep going back to the solar store, which is about 40 miles away, to get the components that I'd miss to try to make sure that I got every little thing in there so I'd avoid some of them comments. Not that I care. Honestly, I've learned a lot from those comments. But going this way for someone who is looking at it and saying, that's too hard to put up a solar kit, this is great because all I really had to do was set it here, plug it in, and I'm good to go. I mean, there was a little bit of finagling to get this cord ran, but I mean, I just saved so much time going with this Apex 300 as opposed to wiring up a solar kit. One place I'll admit I definitely screwed up was the solar panels. I got good panels. They're huge. They're 585 watts a piece, but they're on the roof. They're at a very low angle, so they're not really pointed too far to the south. They're at the wrong angle from the sun. They keep getting snowed on, which sucks. I'll never put panels on the roof again unless I get one of those stands. They do make a stand that has a small clip at the bottom and then a long arm at the top, so it holds the panel at a really nice angle to the sun. If I had those, that would have worked great. The way these are, not so great. However, if you wanted, this can also be charged with a generator, which again, plays in good to me using paneling in here, because if I decide I want to do that, I can pop my paneling off, run a generator cord in, and plug this in so that if at night it starts getting low, fire it up, charge it up, or I could, say charge it up in the morning. If it's going to be a really cloudy, snowy day, charge it up in the morning with the generator, be good to go all day. As far as finishing this cabin, I'm getting a little burned out. I'm not gonna lie. It's cold, freezing, and I think I'm ready for a break. So this is probably gonna be about a month and a half before I get that finished final product video to you. So thanks a lot for watching. Hopefully it'll be sooner, but it's gonna be a bit because I'm taking a break. See you next time.